What's going on, guys? It's your boy Yeet here. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm coming out with you a new deck that I never thought I'd pick my hands up on. Y'all know I'm a huge fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, baby. Now, my boy Yusei is top dog, I'll be honest with you. But I have not played Stardust because I just don't like the way the deck feels. But I saw Jack Atlas got a structured deck coming out. This structured deck has probably revived my hype for 5Ds era all over again, even though I still am a huge fan of it. But this time, it's got me more into thinking, man, Jack is crazy. And I never would say that unless I'm talking about Jack Harlow, because his music is crazy. Good. Anyways, there's a bunch of new cards that got added to the Resonator archetype. Red Dragon Archfiend is insane right now. I know that the deck right now hasn't shown anything in like tournaments as like on recently. And then again, the deck does recently came out and the meta is still being solidified, so people are still just playing what they know works. Anyways, I'm going to show you the deck that actually I won locals with twice now, and I've been playing it on Yu-Gi-Oh! Dueling Nexus. Dueling Book, excuse me. It's like very tired right now. But the deck has shown very great success, and I'm still tinkering around with this stuff. Now, my list can differ from a bunch of other people's, and I know there's still stuff like I want to do, like I want to add Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend. I want to try Barrier Resonator in the side deck, because it has the ability to keep this deck longevity-wise going on. And of course, I also try to keep this as little bit as budget-friendly. Like, I still have access to a lot of my non-budget cards that are inside my other decks. But I wanted to make this like deck specifically for everybody. There are cards in here that do not come from the structure decks, but the deck itself is just cheaper overall without adding like $45 for Prosperity or another $120 for their Triple Tactics Thrust. But it still plays cards in this that will definitely keep it meta-wise, and this deck can definitely play in the meta, because I straight up have played it in the meta. This deck has even gone up against tier elements and everything else like that, and it came down to the fact that I drew Book of Eclipse to book their board, so I didn't have to play around a Rise Heart and everything else like that, and just nuked them. Yes, I ended up winning that match. You could even, now that Fenrir is cheap now, I didn't even think about it at the time, because I just got my hands on Fenrir, but you can play Fenrir in this deck too, because it doesn't hurt this deck whatsoever, and that would just bolster this deck even more. I'm getting too rambling on. If you guys are going to enjoy this deck profile, leave a like and subscribe. Tell me how you guys are enjoying the new deck. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Starting off with the monsters, we're going to start off with one of the new Resonators that come in the structure deck. This is Soul Resonator. This card is probably the best normal summon Resonators have gotten, which realistically is what's reviving this whole archetype. Brief rundown, Soul Resonator lets you, on normal special summon, add a level 4 or lower Fiend monster from your deck to your hand, except Soul Resonator. Already, when I read this card, I was like, so this doesn't lock, this can add any Fiend monster? Any Fiend monster. You already know my brain went to Plunder Patrol, because I love how Fiend deck work. Fiends in that one is my favorite Fiend deck. Except, obviously, at Soul Resonator, and also you cannot special monster from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except Dark Synchro monsters. That kind of hurt me when I saw that. However, the fact that this card searches any Fiend monster in the deck means you can search out not only another Resonator, you can search out your extenders as well. Hell, you can even search out slightly follow-up plays as well. Well, there's a lot less follow places you can add, but still. It also has this neat effect that if it's in the graveyard and a card you control will be destroyed by card effect, and you have Red Dragon Archfiend or a Synchro monster that mentions it on the field, you can manage this card from your graveyard instead. You can only use the effect of this once per turn. But this card is amazing. You basically want to see this card on your opening plays to get really the deck rolling. This is like the best normal summon in the entire deck. But it's not the only new Resonator that we got too, and this is another one of my favorites. And I've seen all the other versions I've seen playing this deck see they only played 2 copies of this. I think 3 is mandatory in this version. You know how many dark decks there are right now? It's a lot. I'm talking about Vision Resonator. Vision Resonator is a definite 3 of in this deck. This card is like, if you, it's anytime it's sent to the graveyard, you get to add a spell or trap that mentions Red Dragon Archfiend from your deck to your hand, searching off one of your main search engines in the entire deck. And this also is a free extender for if there's a level 5 or higher dark monster anywhere on the field, not just yours, your opponent. Special summon this card from your hand free, inherently. You don't even get to really like activate it, just does it. It's a really good card, and I think this card is just amazing for what it does. I can't say much more about this card. This card is just perfectly as good as it is. That's all I really can say about this card. Just very good. It does what it needs to do, and it does it well, and it's so simple, yet it's effective. Next up is about the one Resonator that really is just what still ties in Jack Atlas's like Red Dragon Archfiend deck into like still the crazy spam out that it really does. And I'm talking about Crimson Resonator. Crimson Resonator is the back corner of the whole Resonator stuff. Even though we got Soul Resonator, which is still the best normal summon, Crimson Resonator is still the best Resonator to really get this deck cooking. Because as long as you have this and another Dark Dragon Synchro monster, you get to summon 2 Resonators from your deck with different names other than Crimson Resonator. This searches out everything and lets you get into your high Dragon Synchros, such as like King Calamities, your Supernova, Tyrant, Red Nova Dragon. This card gets you access to all of that. And hell, this is essential for this version because you aim to King Calamities block with this deck 1000% if you're going first. If you're going second, you're making Supernova Dragon and you're breaking their board. That's as simple as this deck goes. None of my duels have lasted more than 3-4 turns if you play your hands right, because otherwise you run out of gas and you're just dead. So yeah, Crimson Resonator, still one of the best Resonators there is. Definite play of. Next over there's a Resonator that I think people have forgotten or just think that it's just not good enough right now. And I'm like, you do realize that we are still in a time format where if you have higher life points than your opponent, you win the duel or the match, like out of the one out of the 3 match, which could either put you into a tie or otherwise. And this card just says, "Give me so much advantage that if I fall behind, it won't backfire up." I'm talking about the 1 copy of Red Resonator. Because of the way this card works, if you special summon, you get to target any monster in the field and gain life points equal to its attack. You do realize, like, this is just one of the best things I can think of. And it's also another extender. Like, if you summon it, you can activate the effect to, like, say, okay, 6, special summon another monster from my hand. Your opponent actually either answers it or they don't. If they do answer it, sick, you wasted one of their resources. If not, then you get to summon it and then synchro summon. Or, go off with other plays. There's a lot you can do. Like, if you bait with Red Resonator, you can then if you let Red Resonator 3, you summon Bone Archfiend or something, and you go into synchro level 6 and then you just go off. It's just very, very good. And I think Red Resonator is key. If I was siding in and out, though, and I know I wasn't going to be in a time matchup, sure. It's like game 2. Side out Red Resonator. You're not going to need it for game 2. But definitely in game 3, Red Resonator stays in this deck, baby. Because if in game 3 and you're in closer to the time clock ending, you're going to regret not having Red Resonator because then you're going to lose because of life points. Telling you this card is coming clutch and won me games because of time. It's desperately mandatory. Last Resonator we play in the deck is 2 copies of Synchron Resonator. Synchron Resonator, if you're a synchro monster in the field, you special this card from your hand once per turn, and if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you get to add a Resonator monster from your graveyard back to your hand, except Synchron Resonator. You can always special summon the card from your hand with a synchro monster on the field once per turn. The add from the graveyard, if it's sent from the field to the graveyard to add one from the graveyard to the hand, is not once per turn. That's it for the Resonator tuners. I will say this, though, there is 12 Resonator tuners, and while there is a bunch of other Resonator tuners out there, including Chain Resonator and Barrier Resonator, which are the only 2 otherwise I'm considering, The others are just not necessary or needed or relevant in this deck at the moment. Maybe there is in other versions, but at least for my version, I think this is perfect. 12 Resonators basically guarantees me to see a Resonator in my hand every single time in this deck. It's very good, and I like the ratio. Next off, another card that came out of the structure deck. While this card is a common, this card is definitely another great card for this deck. 3 copies of Bone Archfiend. This is a remake of Mad Archfiend in the show, one of Jack's favorite cards. Basically, this card is now the extender for this version, this deck, and it also lets you level manipulate as well. Because Bone Archfiend is like the all-in-one like ticket. Like if you were playing the Assault package, this card is the level 1 Psychic tuner that adds the Assault Beast to the hand and does the level changing. It's the one that does all of that. So, but it does lock you into Dark Dragon Synchro monsters, and while it's on the field, when you says the effect, you send one Fiend Tuner from your hand or deck to the graveyard to increase or decrease a monster on your field controls level by 1. You could send your Vision Resonator, get a search, and also set up for other plays, or you could send Crimson Resonator to the graveyard because you're going to be basically summoning yourself a Soul Resonator, make the Red Rising Dragon, summon back Crimson Resonator, and then get all the other tuners out for your plays. I just think Bone Archfiend is really good, and you can summon this card back from the graveyard too. So make sure you always check your graveyard cards. There's a lot of stuff in your graveyard that you'll be able to use or re-add back. Seriously, graveyard management in this deck is probably like a bank for this deck. But that's not the only level 4 fiend we're playing in this deck. We're playing 1 copy of Wandering King Wildwind. I don't know why people are not playing this card. Because if you don't get to search with the Soul Resonator, and you have nothing to extend your board with, and you don't have access to Bone Archfiend, you need some way to keep putting on pressure. And I think Wandering King Wildwind is a very good way of doing so. Not only does it let you, like, just a free inherit special summon, there's a 1500 attack Fiend Tuner on the field, or less, and you get to summon it. Except the turn that was sent to the graveyard, you get to banish the card, and any Fiend monster with 1500 or less from your deck to your hand. Any Fiend Tuner with 1500 or less from deck to your hand. So you can even search the next card that I'll be revealing here shortly, or get search your follow-up plays for next turn. I just think Wandering King Wildwind is just very good. Hell, I've even considered bumping up Wildwind to 2, just so I know I have 5 extenders in case I ever get locked out from searching with Soul Resonator or whatever. So I think people need to reconsider the fact that Wandering King Wildwind is very helpful for this deck. The other Fiend Tuner that it's not really much talked about in the main version, because a lot of people are just playing this with like Bestial package, but I actually break on the Bestials half the time anyway. I'd rather see some of the Resonator stuff anyway, because the Bestial stuff adds a lot of cards to this deck, and I want to see this deck as close to 40 as possible. So I'm playing just the Obsessive Uval Loop in the main deck. This card, yeah, really does show a lot in the Bestial version, and we do like side some Bestials like for matches. But main decking this card is still just a very good card because it says like you can re-add it to your hand. It's a reusable resource. It's another good Fiend Tuner. Hell, it's a level 4 Fiend Tuner, and if you open up this plus Wildwind or Mad Archfiend, you could still do this, like make a level 8 Synchro off the bat and not play into like Nibiru. Nibiru does hurt this deck, but we playing this deck around it. But Uval Loop, very good card. Common, play only 1. Never play more than 1. That's it for the regular monsters. I'm going to show you the hand traps / going second cards now. We got 1 copy of Effect Veiler in here. This card not only is an infinite impermanence, but it doesn't get trap-wise. It's also a tuner that helps us get into other dragons. It's also a card that we have in here for Crossed Out Designator, in case they play that instead of impermanence, because you know you never can be too sure. 2 copies of Ash Blossom and Joy Spring. I know people would play 3. However, I have ratio of the hand traps, and I think that opening hand traps, while it's good going second, does not give you the gas that this deck needs. So I opted for more gas over hand traps, but I still wanted hand traps because this deck loses to hand traps. You know what I mean? And lastly, 2 Nibiru, the Primal Being. I think these are all very solid. Sure, you can try something like DD Crow, or maybe hell replacing these with Bestials. However, I think you would at least keep 1 of each of these because you're going to need them for Crossout Designator, and trust me, Crossout Designator is what keeps this deck going. It helps you play through too many hand traps. There's so many hand traps that can stop this deck if you hit them at the right moment. The only one that doesn't hurt me as much is, like, Ash. I play through Ash like it's nobody's business. The ones that you can't, like, play through, Bestials, Nibiru, and Droll, which are all still meta relevant. Dimension Shifter is Like, sure, you just plan around. You can play around Dimension Shifter. You just don't extend to the maximum degree. And you really need Red Zone to get that out. But that's it for the monster count. On to the spell cards. Next card is one of the cards that came out of the structure deck and what makes this deck so insane right now. And that is 3 copies of Crimson Gaia. Crimson Gaia is a continuous spell card that basically says, during your main phase, add 1 Red Dragon Archfiend or 1 card dimensions from your deck or graveyard to your hand, except Crimson Gaia. Period. That's every turn you get a search. That's like the first thing you do. Sure, you might get, let's say, Droll Bait or Ash Bait. They're going to want to get rid of this card off the field as possible. Because it's not only is it an insane first effect, but it gets better as we go on. When your Red Dragon Archfiend declares an attack, you can change all monsters your opponent controls to face-down defense position. Basically, if you have the regular Red Dragon Archfiend, you Book of Eclipse your opponent's field like UCT would do, and then you blow up all their defense position monsters, which is insane. Hell, I even thought about mixing the dinosaurs with this deck for a bit, because dinosaurs just do the main deck. They don't give a shit about the extra deck. Like, you could still play all the dinosaur combos, send Coatlis, get UCT on the field, poke, and then turn everything face down, and then still do crazy shit. The last effect, though, is if a monster on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect. Doesn't matter whose turn it is, whose card it is or destroyed. As long as a monster on the field is destroyed by a card effect, you can special summon 1 Red Dragon Archfiend from your graveyard. You can release each effect of Crimson Gaia once per turn. 3 great effects, 1 perfect card, play 3 of it. And there's a lot of cards you can revive aside from regular Red Dragon Archfiend in this deck, because a lot of the synchros count as Red Dragon Archfiend while it's on the field or in the graveyard. Next up is another searcher we have for this deck, and that's 3 copies of Resonator Call. This gets you access into all your Resonator tuners. It's a 1 card, get access to whatever. Essentially, a great toolbox card. 1 copy of Foolish Burial. This card is a low-key starter for this deck because you can use it to send Vision Resonator from your deck to your graveyard, and then use Vision Resonator to search out Crimson Gaia if you break on that thing. It's just another card for consistency. 1 copy of Resonator Command. This is where people would probably start playing cards like Prosperity and stuff like that. Resonator Command is a low-key substitute for that, and it basically says, during the draw phase, if your opponent is not, like, if you have any Resonator card from your hand, you basically get to say, sick. During the draw phase, discard Resonator, add a level 4 lower Fiend monster from your deck to hand. So basically, you get to search out Bone Archfiend and basically get an extender. So if your opponent ashes the Soul Resonator, you get to just still go off with plays. 1 copy is all you need. Next up for the card that low-key keeps this deck another card that makes sure this deck is meta competitive, and it also helps prevent us from being locked out of stuff. Crossout Designator, while you can only activate 1 once per turn, 90% of the times 1 is all you're going to need. If you hit the right card, you hit the right card, and you just go on. It's as simple as that. It's mandatory for this deck. This card is branded is what makes this deck be able to function, because 90% of the time if they hit branded fusion with Ash Blossom, you were cooked, and you needed this to stop that. So just like that different situation, Crossout Designator is mandatory for this deck. We also want to take Pesky Hand Trap, so we play Call by the Grave. Very good against your elements as well. Otherwise, we have other going second cards if we can't rely on hand traps that often, because there's also pesky monsters we have to worry about. So we play triple copies of Book of Eclipse. And Book of Eclipse is a very competitive card right now. Held for the longest time. Book of Moon was as well. And some points I still feel like Book of Moon is relevant, but Book of Eclipse just hits everything on the board, and your opponent basically has to answer this with something. Otherwise, you just basically, on going second, you basically just cook. You literally just cook. Even against Unchained, you cook. 1 triple tactics talent. 1 is all you need. it's just another card you can play if you get hand trapped. Ripping a card, stealing a card. Stealing a card actually with this isn't the best because you don't even play Zeus in this deck. Yeah, next off is the one card that lets me get access into Calamity Lock without having to play Etude of the Branded and the Bestial package. It's a card that comes in the structure deck. It's a card called Burning Soul. Going off of the theme of Jack Atlas, I thought this was also very appropriate. Plus, I like this card because it's a recursion card. Basically, Magician of Faith for anything in the graveyard. So, basically, you can only activate this card if it's level higher or Synchro monster is on the field. You get to add one card from your graveyard to your hand except Burning Soul. Then immediately after this effect resolves, Synchro summon using monsters you control as material. For the rest of the turn, after this card resolves, your opponent can target Synchro monsters on the field with card effects. You can only activate one Burning Soul per turn. So, the play with this is like on your first turn, you make one of your level 8 Synchros without triggering Nibiru. Without triggering Nibiru, you can you get your level 8 Synchro on the field and 2 other monsters. And then you set your Burning Soul, you pass turn. During your opponent's draw phase, you play Burning Soul, add anything you want from your graveyard back to your hand, you make King Calamities, your opponent passes turn, you go, you kill them. It's as simple as that. Next card is one card that I think that people also completely overlooked, saying this card is bad. Basically requires you have a red dragon on the field. It's a card that lets you finish out games in my mind. It's another way of it's like double or nothing for this card deck. Absolute Power Force is a very good quick play spell card, but you have to target a red dragon archfiend you control. If that monster you control battles an opponent's monster, this turn apply these effects until the end of the damage step. Gain 1,000 attack. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects. If it attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing damage, and any battle damage your opponent takes is doubled from that battle. This is a very good card, and it's also reoccurable. So if it don't work the first time, you Crimson Guide it out the second time, you do it again, which is very good. One copy of Red Zone. This card is another card from the structure deck. It can summon you back your banished dragons, and if you have a Synchro monster in the field and your opponent activates a card effect, target one card in the field, destroy it. Very good card. And the last card we play in the deck is one copy of Infinite Permanence, not 3, just 1, because, like I said, this deck, while it has some great, it has some good going second cards already, but I don't want to see too many because I want to still see cards that can let me play. And this deck is already, 44 cards, and I don't want to keep it going up. Yeah, so I think the one copy of Infinite Permanence is fine. Onto the extra deck now. We have the boss monster of the deck locking our opponents out from playing is the one copy of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity. Well, I don't have to explain this card. This card's been around for ages, and I really won't need to explain any of the bigger ones. I'm just going to go through them. One copy of Red Supernova Dragon. This is the other boss monster. Really cool. I never had this card before. Red Nova Dragon is another good one. Bestial Despotter. This card was meant for this deck as well. Bestial Despotter is like $13 plus right now. This card is crazy. I can't believe that it just fits right in home to this deck. I might as well have been a Red Dragon Archfiend, a secondary Archfiend card, Red Dragon Archfiend. Speaking of the Red Dragon Archfiend, the other level 10 we're playing the deck is Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane. Literally the revivation of any red dragon in the graveyard. Next off, we're playing 2 copies of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. One of this is what I would be replacing for Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend when I get it, because I never made 2 in one duel, and I never felt like I needed it. Not once. Sure, maybe it might be relevant in some different version, but I seriously have never needed to make a second Abyss ever in this deck. So I definitely feel like making Tyrant in this deck is going to be better, and Tyrant does some crazier stuff right now, like banishing all cards your opponent controls. It's really good. Onto the 8, the new one that really got me hyped up for this, because the artwork on this card is also insane. Scarred Red Dragon Archfiend. We play 2 copies of this card. This card is another Red Dragon Archfiend along with our graveyard. And if this card is from the Monster Zone is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon for the original Red Dragon Archfiend from your extra deck. This is treated as a Synchro summon. Then if this card was sent to the graveyard as a Synchro material, For a dragon synchro monster, you can destroy all attack position monsters your opponent controls. It is a crazy, crazy, crazy card. So good. It's so, so good. One copy of Scarlight to where you can board nuke opponents in certain matchups. Very good against Runic and stuff like that. We just put a lot of pressure on the boards. One copy of the original Red Dragon Archfiend. This card comes as a UR instead of the common inside the structure deck, which is a really cool, nice addition. Don't get me wrong, I do have other Red Dragon Archfiends. I just like this one looks better. One Kaibelt Dragon. This is another new card that came out recently. This is from, what? Dune? Duelist Nexus? So if this card is Synchro Summon at all, you just get to target a card on the field and destroy it. It's another backup play. Helps you also get rid of cards on your opponent's field so you can keep doing your plays. And the last but not least, the last monster we play in the deck is 3 copies of Red Rising Dragon. This card is like the bread and butter behind this entire deck as well. Because without this and Crimson, you don't get to make a lot of the stuff in the extra deck. This deck does hurt by Dimensional Barrier as well. So this card is like just as weak as Sword Soul, yes, when it has all the synchros locked. Now I'm going to show you my side deck that I play at the moment. Again, this side deck is up to interpretation. Do not take my side deck as like this is the mandatory side deck you play for this deck. Feel free to play whatever you want in the side deck. What works for you will work for you, and maybe it works not work for me, and maybe it won't work for me. Maybe it works better for you. Hell, maybe maybe this side deck is perfect for you. Congratulations, I just gave you game, baby. But this is mine, and this is what works for me. I'm playing one copy of Fantastical Dragon Phantasme. It's another dark dragon that you can use for synchro summoning. If you like do this in Soul Resonator, you get to go into Bestial Despotter and stuff like that. It's also a very good card against links and also can help you unbreak your hand if you're going second. I only main side this in if I'm going second for sure. Or I'm playing a link heavy deck. I guess a link heavy deck. One copy of Bestial Baldrake, 2 Druid Worm, and 1 Magma Hut, all are in here against light and dark decks. This is also very good against tier elements right now. So I think it's very, very good to play these cards in the deck. I just can't really say much else about it. I know some people also are going to be citing DD Crow right now, because DD Crow can also hurt Pearly if you hit one of their spell cards. Because I don't think you have to target a monster in your graveyard. With DD Crow, I think you just discard this and then target one card in your opponent's graveyard and banish it. 2 copies of Droll and Lockbird. Only 2 because we don't want to see Brick, but we also want to have this ability because if we know we get hurt to Droll, we want to make sure if our opponent's playing Droll, we have access to this with crossout protection. 1 copy of Forbidden Lance. This might be an interesting C card, but basically if your opponent knows you're like playing infinite, like they know you're playing infinite permanents, hell, Book of Eclipses or something like that, you just chain Lance and keep yourself protected. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. If you fear yourself getting hit by something, you play Forbidden Lance and you protect it so they can't do shit against it. It's as simple as that. Wish I had more copies of this card. Honestly, it's cheap enough, I might as well just order myself some. 1 copy of Dark Ruler No More. Going second, very good. Sure, we won't be able to deal damage, but we are definitely clearing their fucking board, and that's the end of discussion on that one. 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster. Goodbye spell and trap card decks. Another reason to get rid of spell and trap card decks is Cosmic Cyclone. The 2nd copy of Triple Tactus Talents. Really, honestly, I just put it in here because there's a lot of decks right nowadays that I know are just hand trap heavy or want to rip a card out of their hand so they can't do plays, or maybe hell, you attempt to steal a problematic card so they have to force negate it. I just think this card is very good. Yeah, if you don't like this, you can play something like Thrust if you can afford it. But again, this is a very relative version. 1 copy of Evenly Matched and 2 copies of Dimensional Barrier to round off the side deck. Thank you guys for tuning into this video. Let me know what you guys think about the Red Dragon Archfiend deck right now. I think the deck is very, very fun. It does what it does so well, and it is nostalgic for me, especially considering I'm a 5Ds diehard. This deck is cheap as hell to pick up right now. There's even cheaper versions to build this, but this is my version for the deck at the moment. And like I said, I cannot wait to keep messing around with this deck and see where this deck goes. And maybe, who knows, this deck might actually surprise people in some tournaments right now. Like I said, the deck just came out, so it's still being revamped. But anyways, this has been my version. Thank you guys for tuning in this video. If you guys enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe. Comment what you guys think about the deck, or maybe even give me more suggestions to help improve this deck to make it available for everybody, or non-availability for everybody. But I already know about Prosperity. I already know about Thrust. I already know about everything else that I can possibly think of as well. So unless you got a different take on the deck that still keeps it 40, let me know what you guys think. Without further ado, thank you guys for tuning into this video. Your boy is sending out. Peace.